Hey, what's up guys, it's Oakley, and we're going to be doing an awesome battle with all of my minions of the forest here with me. It's all elves. I decided to play a build with Indypride. He was going as the Beastmen, I brought elves, and I decided, you know, what would happen if you just don't bring any archers as the elves? How does that pan out? So I've got a bunch of Eternal Guard, half of them with spears, half of them with shields, half of them without them. War Dancers with Athrai spears in the center, a Spellslinger with the Lore of Life. And so that's essentially a nice death ball with healing capabilities. And on the right side I do have a little bit of a difference. So Sisters of the Thorn, and then 2 War Dancers with swords, and then Orion. So that's kind of a group on the side that's moving about. And yeah, so we're just trying to see, playing non-traditional builds. And so this looks really cool with all the elves charging forward. I love the run animations, just how sweet they look with the capes behind them. So yeah, moving forward with this death ball, let's put this on slow motion. So Indypride did bring a counter pick to mine. So he has a bunch of cheap troops, Ungor Spearmen, and then Gore Herds with shields in the back. And then on the flanks, he has brought a lot of charging units, chariots, Razor Gore herds. And yeah, basically what he decided to do is we both chose our our armies without considering each other. Indy, apparently here, and he confirmed afterwards, was going for, you know, what if I go with chariots, because that's presumably going to kill the elves really quickly. Morghur as well is a nice counter to the elves with his ability to spawn a bunch of chaos. And so yeah, he's got a heavy counter build to mine, or to a traditional elven build. I anticipated the move and tried to do a counter to the counter build by bringing all spears. Thinking was that, hey, if he's going to bring chariots and boars, well, spears and Asarai, who have, you know, charge defense and bonus versus large, well, hopefully they'll do a good job against that meaty build. And you can see my force moving forward is actually forcing Indypride back. He's a little bit scared, and neither of us knew, you know, if we were to take in this engagement, who's going to win. So we're going to get a little bit of kiting here in the beginning. Sisters of the Thorn moving forward and just kind of pushing back and forth. It's interesting, neither of us has any ranged units. We've dispensed with pleasantries, and we're going to just wait for the major engagement. No pussyfooting around with skirmishing. Over in the distance, take a look at my death ball starting to move up. I had them in group formation, something I almost never do, but I wanted to keep a nice disciplined force with the spears on the flank. And now Indy's going for a full surround. I did intentionally walk into the maw of his force, allowed myself to get surrounded because I figured, hey, that's the point of this Death Star, is just to take an engagement from all sides, and let's see how it holds up. Probably ideally you'd want to attack one of the flanks and force your enemy away, but I was going into the maw of the beast. Also, Orion is using his spears to target the enemy Gorbel. I knew that was going to be a priority target. Let's put this on play and see as his first ranks start to line up against my guys. And now here in the front I have my spears, and I'm going to cast an immediate spell on these guys. Let's put this on slow motion. So the I cast Flesh to Stone, and this gives you plus 30 armor. So this is a cool thing you can do with your builds here. Is cast Flesh to Stone against the tip of your death ball, anything that's going to get charged with a lot of armor, and make sure it's going to stay strong in the face of a big enemy charge. So that's what I'm doing. And then over here I brought 2 of my War Dancers, not with the Asarai spears, but instead with swords to counter his build on that flank. Gorbel does charge after Orion, but now I'm going to get some more spears to surround. Orion does pull out, and look at that Minotaur. He tried to charge at my guys, and with their charge bonus or defense against charge, they kind of bounce back his attack. So he tried to roll into me and bounce back. So that was really cool to see. So now I have him completely surrounded with 2 spear units. On all the other flanks, my guys are holding, you know, 3 units charging into my guys all over here, and I'm casting some more spells to buff my defensive capabilities. Flesh to Stone there. I've only lost 2 men since the beginning of the engagement. War Dancers against 2 forces. So yeah, Indy has a lot of guys, but we'll see if I can hold out. I have kept units in reserve because you can see he's circling around with all his chariots. He wants to desperately get in and hit me in the back, and that's why I stayed in this nice compact formation and have more troops in the rear. So this is going to start to get very interesting. Orion is being kept mobile because I want to make sure I have him as a strategic defense against anything that might penetrate the center. Sisters of the Thorn move to kind of block the charge of these units, and then I come in from the side with some spears, intercept them and see them off. Meanwhile, Indypride has charged in with his hero Morghur here, and he is charging in with some chaos spawn. Now I do have my Asarai spears, and then here he raises one of 4 chaos, I believe, that he can raise over the course of an engagement, right into the back of my engaged blob. But you can see these chaos spawn already starting to go down with my Azrai spears and my spell singer there. So this is going really pretty surprisingly well, actually, I would say, considering I've had chaos spawned in my rear. Also, I was able to pull out with some of my Sisters of the Thorn, and now that I have him hammered, or I have him anviled, it's time to get in and hammer him. So Sisters of the Thorn pulling out. These chaos spawn in the back have been buffed, but they're really not doing much. This chaos spawn also getting destroyed, slaughtered by my war dancers with Azrai spears, doing great work, although Morghur here in the center is going to be doing a lot of damage to me. Eternal Guard, the first unit here, only losing 10 men since the start of this battle. That Flesh to Stone buff really helping out. The war dancers here really holding out strongly as well, but they're getting overwhelmed. And meanwhile, I've been able to see off 4 units, 2 Razor chariots. I've taken away their speed, reduced it by a quarter, which is I cast a spell on him, and that's going to allow my units to catch up with his chariots. And yeah, moving around they're going to do damage to me, but I'm going to see them off, keep them away from my main infantry blob, and even catch some of them. You'll see as he starts to reposition and move through the water, I will actually end up catching a couple of these. Now he's going to start to sensibly split up his forces and return back to the main battlefield. But it's good to see that I can catch up with some of them and keep them scared. Now he's going to be circling back. I've been doing the hammer and anvils with Sisters of the Thorn, getting some good kills. He's coming back with his chariots, having circled around my infantry, but I have one more spear line. And then in the center, I've cast Shields of the Thorn, more weapon damage resistance and all that. So that's going pretty well. So the chariots are rethinking their charge. Meanwhile, I'm getting free charges into the back of Indy's force. So far this build seems to be working wonders against this counter build that Indy was hoping to pull off. So this was really cool to see, but all of a sudden now we get to see a Gorbel into the mix, and he's going to help break at least one of my units. So he's ducking and diving into it. He's going to go after my Spill Singer, and then boom, most of his troops do get through, and they're going to land into the back of my spear line engage. I'm going to do the same against his forces, so it's going to be hammer and anvils over there. Meanwhile, Gorbel chasing after the Spell Singer there. She gets out. Luckily, I did put her on a mount so she can get out of there. The Gorbel just not doing too much, but this is a pretty devastating charge against my units, who are starting to get overwhelmed on this flank, but still not as devastating as it could have been. You'll notice that there was no room for archers in my build here. Everyone is tied down, beating back the enemy. Any archer would have been a liability on my side. Yeah, look how quickly we're killing these Razor Gores with these Azrai spears. So that was a good move to bring them. My god, they're just getting slaughtered, and I've got a huge cluster of units now starting to rout. Orion in the mix with Fear, helping to kill those guys, and so things are going pretty well. But in the center, you'll notice that the Morghur is in here, and he's popping abilities, plus he's not recruited, but summoned more Chaos Spawn. So I believe that's the 3rd unit of Chaos Spawn he's spawned in the rear of my forces. That's going to be pretty bad. The green abilities here are the Lore of Life popping up, and boom, here goes, I believe, the 4th and final spawning of Chaos. So these are pretty devastating. Have them spawn in the mix of your defenses. That's going to do a lot of damage to me. It's going to have attack in the rear penalties and all that, but it also means that he doesn't get a charge off, so I'm now going to start to tear into those Chaos Spawns, but it's a lot of extra units that I have to chew through. So I'm getting some pretty good routes on his forces, but my numbers are starting to dwindle and get whittled away. Lore of Life doing everything it can to keep my guys up and running. Orion still in the mix. My Spell Singer even in the mix as well. Her ability is super cool. Those explosions that she kind of throws down. I'm not sure if that's a spell or a kind of a potion that she throws down. But in the distance, all the Razor Gores there, killing my guys. Finally, it looks like this flank is going to be outnumbered and outmatched, although the Gorbel that was in here was pretty much cleaned up and killed. But this chariot with the buff that we saw as of the recent patch doing really well. The green, again, is Lore of Life that I'm casting. Replenish its hit points, trying to keep them in the mix because I've broken through Indy's flank, so we're trading flanks here. Both my heroes are still alive. My Sisters of the Thorn are still alive, cleaning up the rear of his ranks, so we'll see kind of how this goes down. This is going to be down to the wire. Morghur is down to half health, which is really awesome because I have Orion at full strength. And so we'll see kind of how the lords trade out. But Morghur, mind you, does have a lot of spells and abilities to bring him back up to full strength, so I don't expect him to go down. He's one of the tankiest lords that you'll see. Oh my god! And Orion just bashed that Gorbel into oblivion. That was really cool. And now he's going to continue to just cleave through these other units. The Gorbel does pick himself up. Same with the rest of these Gore herds, and now it looks like we're going to get a final decisive engagement here. The Gorbel does come back for more. and Orion is getting tossed about by all these chariots. Now it's a complete surround of my forces. The inevitable has happened. He's surrounded my dudes, and now we're starting to get some sick stacked abilities. Indypride doing everything he can to try and break the morale of my forces. It's starting to go. Orion is still in the mix with lots of health. He's going to kill the Chaos Spawn and still hold strong, but man, it is not looking good for my forces. And yeah, so we'll see how he can tank it out. It seems like Indy's superior numbers and the charge that he finally got off in that last little engagement is going to be doing work for him. However, things aren't necessarily quite over, as you'll see real briefly. Orion is going to be down to his last little wits, a sliver of health remaining, but I'm going to have units start to come back, and so things are going to turn around a little bit. Yep, I have a little bit of health, and now I'm going to pull him out of this engagement. My units are going to start coming back, and then what I realize is my spell singer here trying to cast all sorts of spells, blowing people up. She's buying time for Orion to pull out, and I am starting to shatter some of his units. A lot of them are starting to waver now, so things are coming back in my favor. Orion pulls out, and look at these other units starting to come back to the battlefield. This is actually really cool. Rallying to Orion, a lot of the enemy units are wavering, so this could be the moment that things do turn around. Really, really cool. All of the Chaos Spawn that Indypride chose, or summoned, I keep mixing that up, they're going to start dying off because the new timer on them, they lose health over time, so by me disengaging at this point, they're going to start to die out, which is awesome. It's going to even up the numbers. I do try and cast a spell on the blob that was here a second ago, but they all, Indy's got good splits, so he gets them all out of there. Orion's going to charge into this unit, but then try and pull out. And you'll notice I have movement orders for 2 units to move into position. These are 2 units that, unfortunately, when I started the battle in my death ball, for some reason weren't grouped up. So this whole time we've had this battle, I've had 2 fresh units, and I was kicking myself at the end of this battle, thinking how much of a benefit 2 fresh units would have made to the fight. So that is somewhat unfortunate that they were kind of sitting in the back that whole battle, tilted the favors back in Indypride's favor, but now at least at the end here, they do have an opportunity to come back and seize the day. Full strength, full numbers, full health, full morale. They're going to rally to Orion, and now we're going to have a rejoining of the second type of battle, while Indypride's forces are pretty low on their stats. Although the balance bar does pretty heavily favor him at this point, a lot of his guys are teetering on the brink. Morghur is at half health, and a lot of his Chaos Spawn here, making a pretty big amount of his strength, are going to start to die out. You'll see these guys as they pad along, or then boop, yep, there you go, they're going to time out. So that was a good choice on CA to add that timer. The diminishing health definitely improves the balance in terms of summoning units in the late game when events like this might happen. So I have 2 fresh units, Orion in the back, Wild Riders down to like 6 or 7 men, a couple bloodied Asarai Spears, all of these units rallying back to my guys. And it's maybe okay at this point that I would have loved to have archers, but I don't think any archers that I would have brought would have survived till this stage of the battle. They would have been massacred by the that fighting in the background that you saw there over at that hill now covered in bodies. So I'm shuffling around my troops. His chariots on the right, I think, pose the biggest threat, so that's where I've got my spears here. I'm moving Orion to kind of try and force them back, have morale buffs to my forces, and now I'm going to try and move him back. He's going to try and counter my spears with gore herds, which have, you know, axes. So I'm going to swap out my spears for some of these Asarai who do well against infantry. So I'm going to cut his guys apart, and then his chariots are going to start to move back in. So I'm going to turn my spears about to see off his chariots. Yep, so here they come. They're positioning themselves, but now everything's going to be thrown into this position. Gorebull being thrown in, Morghur as well. Yeah, this is going to be pretty bad. Oh, no, sorry, that's not a Gorebull, that's Morghur herself. So the Gorebull is dead, and now we're going to commit everything to this battle. Indy does get a nice surround. It gets some explosive damage off, but it mostly whiffs his guys. It doesn't actually do too much damage. I'm routing the left flank, and now Orion comes in here and starts crushing these units. So things are looking okay for me. I'm starting to get some wavering and routing, breaking of his forces, so it looks like the comeback is coming back around. His units on the left are routing, but all of a sudden I start to get damaging losses on the left. And then now comes the critical moment, a nice, well, actually not so nice, charge of his Razor Gore and chariots, and a full strength Eternal Guard unit shatters immediately from that. So that was really, really bad for me. All of a sudden, Indypride's forces start to rally about, and now we get the final conclusion of the battle where things turn against me. Orion is finally left on his own. No one really left besides a couple Asarai. He's here trying to slay the pigs around him. but Morghur is going to get the final word. He's going to knock my guy about, and I love the effects at his feet. Orion's going to look at the forest, get a last glint through his eyes at the forest, and then he dies. So that was an awesome battle. Really cool to see Indypride's build and my build with no archers whatsoever, just down to the meat of it. See who does come out on top. Does a chariot and rush build work against an all-spear build? And I think despite what we saw here, I think it's kind of inconclusive. Part of that is on me for having those 2 spear units at the end just uncommitted. Had they been in the battle, I think I could have won. Would have slaughtered those Chaos Spawn much more easily. Would have been able to outflank Hammer and Anvil with those guys, prevent charges in the rear. I think I would have won that battle had those guys been in the fight as well. Another thing that Indypride and I did discuss is, had I had, instead of Orion, brought a Glade Lord on a dragon, that would have been awesome because it has the ability to fly above the battlefield, and when his forces were otherwise, stuck onto my guys, I could have simply flown above, landed on them, caused fear and attack in the rear penalties, and that would have shattered his guys much more readily, as well as the fact that Indy had no ranged units, so I could have been up there with a bow or something to shoot at his guys, pick away at them. So that's a pretty valid point, and I think Orion here, as we'll see, did get 98 kills, but I think a Glade Lord atop atop a dragon could have done even more. But still lots of kills for my guys. The Asrai Spears, the War Dancers with Asrai Spears getting a lot of kills. Eternal Guards doing well. Orion doing well, and then the Sisters of the Thorn on cleanup operation. Indy's own forces doing a lot of kills. He had 300 more men than me. A lot of kills on the chariots and razor gores. Although one of them was at 3, but Indy was telling me that was bugged. On his end, it was more kills. Yeah, Gore Herds here doing fairly well. And yeah, he brought a lot of them, which was all obviously good to overall my spears. But at the end of the day, I think it was mostly Morghur and his ability to raise 4 chaos spawns within my midst. That did a lot of the killing, and that didn't show up here. So Morghur is definitely a good pick for the Beastmen. So I do hope you guys enjoy. If you're going to go against Wood Elves, try Indypride's build here. I think it's going to be very effective. And if you're the Wood Elves going against the Beastmen, try my build and see kind of how that leaves you. Anyways, that is it for this video. I do hope you guys enjoyed. It was really fun to play, and yeah, we'll keep tweaking with builds. See you in the next one. Peace out.